And we came here to come and share with you our story in South Africa and our struggles and sufferings which we're going through in the country on a daily basis. And this platform is a very correct platform because we come from a country where students are in the forefront of the struggle. We come from a country where students are leading the struggle against colonialism. We come from a country where students are fighting against white supremacy and a capitalist system that has divided our country and excluded the indigenous people of South Africa and Africa as a whole. It is the students of South Africa, following the speech of the EFF in Parliament of South Africa, that demanded that Rhodes must fall. They do not say Rhodes must fall because of their hatred of white people, but they said Rhodes must fall because they hated what Rhodes represented: a white supremacy, a system that projected white people as superior and black people as inferior, a system that subjected black people to a situation where they were denied education so that they can be suppliers of cheap labor. Rhodes took our land. Rhodes introduced a system that led to a black genocide. Rhodes exploited our minerals and natural resources and left South Africa without anything that will demonstrate that this country is a mineral-rich country. We cannot continue to celebrate people who represented a racial divide of our people. So the students in South Africa are demanding, and they've succeeded, that everything else that represents backwardness and racial division and hatred of black people should not be celebrated. The students, after the defeat of those who believed that those who perpetuated white supremacy should be celebrated, they went further to demand that education should not be a commodity. It must be free for all, because education is a right protected and enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. They agreed, those students, that no university in South Africa should increase fees, because fees as they are now, they're extremely expensive. The government of South Africa agreed that they will not increase fees, and they thought that they have successfully silenced the students. Upon agreeing, in the same way they agreed to remove Rhodes, the students said 0%, no increase is not enough, we want free education. Following the success of the students to put on the national agenda the importance of education, then the workers in the university demanded to be incorporated as employees of the universities, because in South Africa, workers are not part of the staff complement of the universities. They are outsourced, they are owned by labor brokers, they've got no benefits, they've got no rights. They work for universities, some of them for more than 30 years. When they go on pension, they've got nothing to show. Students joined them and said, these are our parents, we want them to be integrated as part of the university, and they must have benefits. Because you've got a situation where in South Africa, the rich have got extremely more than the poor. We've got a situation where the rich love animals than the people. The dogs of rich people in South Africa have got medical aids, but the domestic workers and university workers, the farm workers, the petrol attendants, the security guards do not have medical aids, neither do they have rights as workers. They all work for a system called labor brokers. So students, like they did during apartheid days in South Africa in 1976, they've now influenced a new era, a new terrain of struggle, where the interests of the poor are firmly put on the agenda of South Africa. Today, South Africa discusses minimum wage. Today, South Africa discusses how the rich can share wealth with the poor, because the young ones are in the forefront of the struggle to transform South Africa. In South Africa, for the past 21 years, politics which were represented there were right-wing politics, which led to the ruling party also taking a right-wing direction because it only had competition from the right. There's never been a legitimate, credible left formation to challenge the ruling party or to have a ruling party striving for balance. And because nature does not allow a vacuum, the organization called the Economic Freedom Fighters emerged and closed that gap. The EFF emerged in South Africa because South African working class demanded a proper representative of the working class. EFF emerged in South Africa because the unemployment increased in South Africa. The poverty levels increased in South Africa. The inequality increased in South Africa. We have a situation where the levels of corruption in South Africa are actually institutionalized. You get a senior position on the basis of to what extent are you corrupt. If you are anti-corruption, you never get a promotion, because the state favors those who are corrupt. We have a situation in South Africa where a white-owned capitalism or economic system has been exploiting our people, and our people have not been benefiting from the mineral resources in our country. We have a company called the London Mine, which is mining in a place called Marikana. In that mine, the mine has got everything, all the basic needs: water, electricity, roads. And just next to a mine is a township or a village where black people stay without water and electricity, without roads, without proper schools. Yet London Mine is taking their platinum and reinforcing and making London and Britain to be what it is. Literally, between the mine and the community is a dumping area where the children coming from that community go and look for food in that dumping area. It is in the same mine where 34 workers were killed by a London mine. Those workers did not demand anything except a living wage. One of the workers in an interview, when he was interviewed and he was told, "You are looking for too much money, yet you are not educated. Why do you look for so much money? You have not been to school." He said, "I want this money so that I can take my child to school, so that my child cannot be like me. I want to produce a CEO of a mine." They were fighting to have a roof over their head. They did not have weapons in their hands. But the government of the day responded to those genuine demands of the people by sending police with rifles, and people were killed because they demanded enough money to take their kids to school. Some of them, when police arrived, they raised their hands and pleaded that police should not kill them. Police shot defenseless masses of our people. One of the people who was shot there was one man who was wearing a green blanket called Mambush, with more than 7 bullets found on his head on a close range, because they demanded money and more money from London Mine. When people demand water, they get shot at and killed by the government. When people demand better living conditions, the response of the state is to kill those people. We're fighting against that. When the students demand free education, they get locked up by the regime. We're fighting against that. We're fighting for equality in our country. We do not want to replace white supremacy with black supremacy. We want to create a society where all of us exist as human beings and not as white and black. We want to restore the dignity of the African continent and position Africa as an equal partner in the world economy and international politics. We want Africa to be like Europe. We don't want Europe to treat Africa like it is its own subject. Africa's time is now. No one should continue with the exploitation of our minerals without our involvement. Not even China will be allowed to recolonize Africa. We are called economic freedom fighters because we want any foreign direct investment to come and invest in Africa through our own terms and to the benefits of the people of Africa. It might be a dream. Some might think it's not real. But we know we're going to achieve it. For because this dream is not just a dream but a generational mission. It's a generational mission we are not prepared to sell out. We want to restore the dignity of African people. We want to ensure that African people are equal partners in trade, in politics, in every subject that the world is debating. We want to follow in the footsteps of Nelson Mandela. Because Nelson Mandela, when he left his term as a president, he said the struggle continues. He said so because he knew that political freedom without economic freedom is incomplete. People cannot eat a cross. People want to put bread on the table. So, like many African leaders, we have committed not to betray the dreams of those who came before us. Like many African leaders, we want to unite the people of Africa to have a common agenda and common purpose. We want Africa to unite and Africa to reclaim its land and its resources. The EFF speaks about expropriation of land without compensation because we know that when the land was taken in Africa was through genocide. Why would we reward genocide? We cannot reward genocide, but we want land because land guarantees us of the sovereignty of South Africa and the African continent. We cannot claim to be Africans, yet we have nothing to show as a proof that indeed we are Africans. For because we do not even have title deeds to prove that we are the owners of the land. We have nothing to show. When you go into mines, it's multinational companies. When you go into banks, it's multinational companies. When you go into monopoly industries, it's multinational companies. We cannot even own and protect our own agricultural sector with our fertile land in Africa, because Europe and the entire developed countries use Africa and South Africa as a dumping site. Every lower grade food get to be dumped in our countries, undermining our own agriculture. When we say those things, we are called communists, we are called anarchists, we are called radicals, because we must continue to bow before a white supremacist. We're refusing that. We're refusing to bow before imperialism and colonialism. We want a total control of our own country and our own land. We in South Africa, black and white, we coexist as people. When we fight colonialism, we do not fight white people. We come from a bad history of apartheid, where white people have exploited us for far too long. Yet, we have extended a hand of friendship. There are many others who are still refusing and still wanting to act as if we live in the apartheid era. Those do not deserve to live amongst those who want a united South Africa, black and white. It is of their own problem. We are not going to be an international home of racists. We're not going to be an international capital city of racism. We refuse that black people must still bow before white people. And that does not mean you must go away. We are going to reverse the legacy of apartheid through robust engagement and not through pretentious arrangements. We are still hating. We have seen people dying before us. We have seen many children killed by apartheid regime. Yet we came out and said, we remain brothers. But there are those who are refusing to show remorse and wanting to perpetuate that which happened during apartheid times. We owe no one no apology when we say South Africa is no home of racists. And racism must be fought everywhere else, including here in Oxford. It must be fought everywhere else in New York, where black people get to be shot at by police at will without serious action. We need a world that recognizes human beings and not color. It starts with me. It starts with me, particularly if you are white. You need to stand up and say, not in my name. We are a new generation. We need to usher in a non-racial international society. Racism has got no place where democracy, prosperity is to take place. South Africa, we want to lead by example. In the same way we led by example and accepted that the colonizer and the colonized must share territory. Even beyond the defeat of the colonizers, we did not seek to pay revenge. We continued to share territory with those who colonized us, because we believe strongly that there is a place for everyone in South Africa. But let us transform the economy to benefit all. We cannot protect white privilege at the expense of the majority African people in South Africa and the whole entire African continent. We are hated for saying that. We are hated for demanding that we must all be treated as equals. It's not going to change that. We will rather die for a dream that is going to be realized by many generations after us. Even if we don't realize it ourselves, we've made a commitment to lay a firm foundation for generations to come. We seek to inspire confidence amongst many, many, many African masses that they must stand on their own. In this day and era, you still have a situation where there are African states paying colonial tax to France. France, it is what it is because of those African states. You have the reserve banks of African states in France and not in Africa itself. And we must accept that and say it is acceptable, it is in the interest of Africa. It is not. We want Africans to have control over their own currency. We want Africans to have control over their own economy and what constitutes their own economy. Our struggle seeks to inspire that. Our struggle seeks to inspire accountable African leaders, not dictators, not unaccountable leadership that turns a public purse into a personal purse. Some leaders in Africa, when you ask them for money, they go and fetch from a reserve bank and give it to you because they treat a reserve bank as a personal bank account. It can't be. We want leaders who are responsible. We want leaders who are accountable. We want leaders who will go to elections and be elected through democratic means. Let people determine their own leadership and not because leaders are torturing them and intimidating them and imposing themselves on the people. We were happy when South Africa became one of the last liberated countries because we thought we would learn from many failed African states and not repeat similar mistakes. But it looks like we are traveling in the same direction that was traveled by failed African states. In the whole of Africa, I met some of the students earlier, some are doing research in Africa. You must go and check the facts. In every failed state, it became so because of an individual called the president. The president takes over the country and everything else gets to be designed around the individual called president. They move from a democratic rule to personal rule. They respect individual more than the state institutions. If a president does not like a red beret, a law is passed that all red berets are banned in this country. If the president in South Africa does not like a corruption fighting institution called Scorpions, they go and close down that Scorpion so that he can steal more than 250 million rands. I don't know what is that in pounds. Because he doesn't want to go to prison. Every institution that wants to take him to prison for corruption, he destroyed that institution. The Scorpions closed down because that was going to cause him problems. Now we've got a beautiful lady called a public protector fighting corruption. The president is after her. Because anyone fighting corruption in South Africa is the enemy of the president. And if that president is left alone, South Africa will become one of the failed African states, not under our watch. The EFF has arrived. The EFF is going to protect the sovereignty and the democracy of South Africa. The EFF is going to revive correct politics in Africa and position Africa at a correct path in the international politics. It is possible. We have taken that position, and many in Africa are willing to follow. So we came here to the Oxford Union and to London because we are going to meet many other institutions, including thinking tanks and investors in Africa. I mean, in UK. Those who want to invest in Africa, those who love peace and democracy, those who love the sharing of wealth amongst people. We need your support. We need you to commit that Africa should not be a playground of the rich, because Africa is not a desert, but a continent where human beings are found and they must be treated with respect and dignity. Thank you very much.